Chapter 128, Ambiguous Air. Sign Lento replied before he hesitated for a moment, there's a single VIP room that is left, but... A single VIP room? Didn't you say that there were no rooms available? Davis narrowed his eyes as he questioned with an inquisitive gaze. We have, but that VIP room is quite unique. I wonder if the young lady over there is called Evelyn Calden? Sign Lento didn't say much but directed his doubt to Evelyn. Evelyn nodded her head and spoke up, I am. Good, then that means Crown Prince is partially eligible to stay that room. I wonder if it is fine with Miss Evelyn? Hearing his question, Evelyn's heart palpitated for a second as she thought of sharing a single room with Davis. During their journey, they stayed in separate rooms. Now that they had to share a single room, she hesitated for a moment before she thought, it's just a single room. What are you so hesitant about? It's fine, Evelyn answered as she made her decision. Davis laughed externally but he cried mentally. It didn't matter if they stay in a single room or not, because he couldn't make a move on her. Not with the body of an 11-year-old, even though he looked like an average 16-year-old. Perfect. Here's the key to the room. Sign Lento presented a key before he winked at Davis. Davis felt perplexed, what is this man trying to get at? But he took the key, paid the man and headed to the so-called VIP room by following the directions of the staff. He and Evelyn finally arrived in front of a door, decorated with sensual violet lights. The door had a sentence written on it, only husband and wife. They finally understood why the owner said that they were partially eligible to stay in this room. That said, they both got a bad feeling about this. Davis had a vague feeling but now, he could imagine what kind of room it was. He contemplated for a moment, deciding to confirm with her once more before he entered. Evelyn, have you seen any inn like this in our empire? Evelyn looked at him and blinked with a stiff face. No. Are you sure? Lifting up his eyebrows, he asked. She nodded her head with her eyes still blinking. Pointing at the door, he laughed, then why don't we head inside? Sure, you go first. Evelyn smiled faintly, her voice trembled a little but it was unnoticeable. All right. He looked at the keyhole and inserted the key. Kaka. He went inside the room and was hit with a strange fragrance. He then looked at the king-sized bed that was adorned with rose flower petals. Beside it was a table, and on it were pill containers which contained pills that had different effects. The lighting was ambiguous, one that could be found in some places that brightened up the mood. The walls were soundproofed and many concealing formations were set up, so no matter what happens here, it stays here as long as the people who stayed here don't divulge it. I thought so. A place for debauchery. Davis muttered as he looked around the place. Normally, these kinds of places were used by couples who couldn't indulge in these acts unless they cry out in pleasure. Bang! Davis widened his eyes and slightly froze. He looked behind him to see Evelyn leaning on the closed door with her hands behind her back. Her figure was so mesmerizing that it looked like he was invited to come closer to her and do things which he should do as a true man. His breathing slightly hastened before he calmed down by taking deep breaths as he closed his eyes. What are you playing at? Evelyn? There was a moment of silence before he asked again. You knew what this place was, don't you? Evelyn had a slight blush on her face, it looked as if she was trying hard for some reason. Have you done it before? She asked in a meek voice. Davis's heart skipped a beat, and in response, he instantly replied, No, I haven't. Truly? Her face brightened. What happened to you? You're suddenly acting weird now. Davis asked with a worried face. He couldn't understand why she would suddenly act like this for no reason. That's... Her eyes suddenly turned misty, that's because you haven't even kissed me once. She squealed as she raised her voice, grasping her black skirt. Kiss? Davis looked at her in disbelief, that was her reason for acting weird. She looked at him with misty eyes and continued, My father said that I might lose my innocence to you in this period of time. Shirley said that boys of your status and age had already done it with their servants. With all these facts, I couldn't help but worry that you don't want me anymore. Hearing her words, he was quite dumbfounded. He suddenly looked up and thought to himself in solitude, am I the only one who isn't in sync with this world? The common sense established in this world was totally different from what he had expected. Some matters were the same while the others weren't. Looking at her again, he remembered that he never said any words of affection to her, other than joking and chatting with her like friends. Instantly he decided to throw out his worries out of his mind, and by the time he realized it, he was madly kissing her cherry lips as he held her cheeks. Evelyn's eyes went wide the moment she felt his passionate kiss, her eyes turned even more misty as she experienced the first kiss of her life. Suddenly, she felt his tongue enter her mouth and caress her teeth. Hit by a moment of discomfort, she tried to unconsciously move out his tongue using her delicate tongue, but it got caught and twisted as it intertwined. It was like a switch that had been flipped in her brain. She started to passionately respond to his kiss as she hugged his head. They tightly pressed against each other's body and kissed in incomparable sync, unlike their early performance. Davis licked her tongue and kissed her lips several times before he lost count of it. He felt her twin mountains pressing against his chest. His hands left her face and grabbed her succulent peaks. A huge muffled moan escaped from her mouth as she lost her balance and collapsed. Davis held her waists and raised her up as he went towards the bed. He released her on the bed, climbed on top of her and stared at her misty black eyes. Chapter 129, The Day Before the Bonk. Their faces were just inches apart, and they could feel their hot breaths blowing against each other. Evelyn looked at him while taking huge deep breaths. Her face felt hot as she flushed red as a rose. Her chests rose up and down from her heavy breathing. I love you, Davis declared as he once again plunged, ravaging her lips in a passionate manner. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat as she intimately responded again. Their tongues battled wantonly as they interlocked their fingers. It was a whole 30 seconds before their lips separated as they ran out of breath. Their breathing was ragged, while both of them had passion and lust in their eyes. Just when he thought of removing her black clothes, he suddenly felt his sanity come back to him as he thought about his 11-year-old body. He felt idiotic to be thinking about that at a time like this, but abruptly, a thought emerged in his mind: would I still do it if her age was the same as mine? He gritted his teeth. His answer was a solid no. He looked at her passionate gaze and felt apologetic, but also felt like he should stop right now. He stayed like this for a while, and not before long, she felt her sanity coming back to her as well. Evelyn had a confused expression on her face, though she was still blushing. Evelyn, I love you, Davis once again declared with a serious expression on his face. He caressed her cheeks as he continued, don't worry, I won't leave you. Her eyelids trembled as she asked, really? He nodded his head and answered truthfully, as long as you don't betray me. I wouldn't betray you. Hearing his words, she hurriedly replied worriedly as she sat back. Hugging her intimately, he answered back, I know. Being hugged by his warm body, she felt that her desire to earn his love had finally succeeded. Tears welled up in her eyes as it dripped down her face like a fountain. I love you too, Davis. He caressed her back and whispered some words of comfort. A few moments passed before he separated from her and looked at her tear-drenched face. Laughing at it, he wiped her tears away with his fingers. Evelyn pouted as she looked aside, unwilling to meet his gaze. Weird. Now that we've confessed our feelings, shouldn't we be more intimate? He felt duped as he thought. Just when he tried to kiss her again, she looked up and met his gaze. I'm sorry. I won't do that again. I'll wait till we've married if that's what you want. Ah? Yes, that's what I thought too. Afraid that he had been caught trying to kiss her, he carelessly replied with a stiff face. Evelyn nodded her head and quieted down. Suddenly, she blushed again and continued in a meek voice. If you're dissatisfied, then we can do what we've done before, Before she could finish her words, her cherry lips were sealed again. She froze and looked at him, while he separated and smiled at her. "Remember what you said." He moved away from the bed and went into the bathroom, obviously to calm down whatever that was raging in his lower part of the body. He went inside and meditated, literally. Evelyn touched her lips in a daze, but it seemed incredibly sexy with her mature appeal. She extended her other hand to the lower part of her body and it felt slightly damp. Her face turned incomparably red as she remembered the deed she'd done with him. Shame overwhelmed her entirety while her mind collapsed as she fainted on the pillow. When Davis came out, he saw that she was sleeping. He smiled and slept beside her. The next day, when they woke up, there was a slight embarrassment in both of their faces as they awkwardly spoke and greeted each other. But not before long, they looked at each other and laughed at their awkward selves. After they got ready, they left the inn while receiving various looks of envy, admiration, and jealousy. They spent the whole day touring around the royal capital. There were too many sceneries which brightened up their mood. While they toured around, they saw many youths clad in luxurious robes. Check them out. Davis knew that they were here for the birthday banquet as well. Davis was sure that he didn't see them at the Grand Sea Continent meet, so he guessed that they must have just passed the age limit that was set for the competition. Still, he didn't even bother to start a conversation with them as he felt that it might be a drag. Especially when he kept enjoying the time he spent together with Evelyn. There was always a smile on his face as he got to experience the so-called date which he always read about. But that didn't stop the beautiful and voluptuous noble women from approaching him to strike up a conversation. Davis got a headache, but he tactfully declined their advances by straight up introducing Evelyn as his love and wife-to-be. The proud women's faces scrunched up in an ugly smile before they smiled to each other and left. He was slightly worried if the elite youths who came together with them might trouble him, but to his surprise, no one came to disturb him. It was as if they were busy with something else. He then heaved a sigh of relief and spent the time joyfully with only her. By the time it was night, they went to another inn to rest and attend the birthday banquet tomorrow. Unfortunately, Evelyn took the lead in asking 2 rooms when they went inside the inn, leading frustration to build up in him. He looked forward to kissing that cherry lips once again, but he knew Evelyn must have noticed it, prompting her to get another room. Why? Because he kept getting caught gazing at her lips the whole day. She must have felt disgusted. Is what he thought, while sadly heading to his room. He went inside his room and fell flat on the bed, sulking over while contemplating the meaning of his existence. Time passed tranquilly when suddenly, a knock could be heard, disturbing the peace that Davis wanted to experience not once in his lifetime. Chapter 130, Trivial Undercurrents. Davis widened his eyes as he stood up, looking back at the door. Could it be that she came? His face lit up in excitement before he rushed off to open the door in an instant. The moment he opened the door, his face went incomparably ugly as his soul left his body in disgust. Did I just open the door for a guy? And that too with an excited face. Standing before him was what looked to be a scrawny man who looked to be a staff of this inn. Say. What do you want? Davis asked as he looked at the scrawny man with hostility. The scrawny man trembled. He knew who this customer was as the rumor of the Crown Prince of Lowrit Empire staying here spread like wildfire. Say it. Davis said as he snapped. Normally he would have dealt with him politely, but when he realized that the one behind that door was not Evelyn, he got angry. Yes. The scrawny man trembled again before he presented a letter like a girl, who had gathered up her courage to present it to her crush. When Davis saw that letter, his eyes went wide. Are you fucking kidding me? Just when he thought of teaching this man a lesson, the scrawny man uttered, a woman outside told me to give you this letter. She said that it was important, and no matter what happens, I must deliver it to you or else I will lose my life. She also gave me a lump amount of platinum coins, so I couldn't resist. I ask for your forgiveness. Please forgive this lowly one. By the time he finished his long speech, Davis was dumbfounded while looking at his kneeling posture. Davis hesitated for a moment before he took the letter and questioned, "What did that woman look like?" The scrawny man gulped for a moment before he answered, "I couldn't see that lady's face because she had her face covered by a mask, but her voice was stunning." Davis narrowed his eyes as he asked again, "What else?" The scrawny man's eyes darted left and right before he said secretly, "That woman wore black robes, but I can definitely say that she has a perfect S-shaped figure." When Davis heard that, it put a smile on his face as he thought that this man was quite amusing. Waving his hand, Davis sighed, "All right then, leave. I humbly thank the Crown Prince for his understanding." Bowing heavily, the scrawny man left. Davis closed the door and sat on the bed. He then opened the letter as he muttered, "Now, what could it be?" The letter had a royal emblem on it, but he wasn't sure if it was true or not in any case. Unfolding it, he read the words written on it. "Crown Prince Davis Lowrit, as soon as you finish reading this letter, burn it. It's me, Shirley Ashton. It's important, come alone to the Bright Star Royal Palace, I want to talk to you about something important." Davis held his chin as he thought about whether to go or not. Burn it? She doesn't want to get caught contacting me? Does she need my help? Or is she plotting something? He contemplated, but couldn't arrive at a conclusion. He took his hands off from his chin as he stood up and smirked, "If I don't go, how will I know?" He went out and locked the door. Suddenly, he felt as if he was cheating and thought, "I should inform her before going there, right? But what if she wouldn't let me go? Or says that she will accompany me as well? It will become quite problematic, but then again, they recently became friends, so Shirley might not bother, but wait. Then why did she call me alone and not Evelyn?" He felt his head ache in confusion. "Screw it," he muttered before he made a decision and left. In an alley, some distance away from the inn where Davis and Evelyn stayed there were a few burly men who looked as if they were veterans, roamed about as they headed in a certain direction. "Yo, you got the money right?" asked the man, with a mustache on his face. A man who had a face like a lizard replied as he cackled, "Don't worry, we've got more than enough to spend a few nights with those beauties at that place. Hurry up and let's go. I can't wait to smash my rod into them." Another man, who had a well-developed body, shouted as he started running towards the place they wanted to visit, to experience nightly pleasures. Suddenly, the man's eyes went wide as he stopped and stared at a direction. With this horny mind right now, he couldn't help but whistle at what he looked. The other two came beside him and froze as they feasted their eyes on the scene in front of them. There were three women, clad in elegant and luxurious clothing, and their faces looked as if they were interrupted by something disgusting. The three men looked at the incomparably sexy silhouettes. A fire burned in their loins as they lost some of their reason to their burning lust. The three women looked disgusted, but that only added more fuel to their fires, lighting up their ardent desire. The guy with the well-developed body, with his confidence, moved in the direction of those three women. "Women, come with me and I'll promise you that you will experience the pleasure of your lifetime," he boldly declared as he looked at the three women. He had mistaken them for prostitutes who were clad in fancy dresses which looked luxurious, to seduce men at night. "Trash!" uttered a woman who wore green luxurious silk robes. Suddenly, a small bird flew down and landed on one of the women who wore amorous pink clothes. She then uttered, "It's time, let's go." "Wait a moment," the third woman said as she walked to the front. She wore a purple silk robe that was tinged with black. Chapter 131, Backstabber. "Really? Will I get to experience the pleasure that I have never experienced before in my lifetime?" Her eyes were hazy as she asked in a seductive tone and posture. "Yes. I promise." The man yelled and hurriedly ran to embrace her as he thought of almost doing her in this alleyway. Just as he ran, he slowed down as he collapsed in the middle of running. His head flew beside the women who indirectly invited him with her seductive behavior. Blood sprayed all over the place from his neck, but it didn't splash on the three women. "Hurry up, it's time," we have to go now. The women who wore pink clothes narrowed her eyes and said in disgust. Don't worry, it'll be soon over. The women who wore purple robes had a sharp blade-like whip in her hands, her eyes dilated as she seductively grinned. The next moment, screams rang out as the entire alleyway turned silent. In the Bright Star Royal Palace. The palace was built with special materials that made it glitter fierily when looked at from the outside. Inside, marbles and stones were marvelously etched on it as it looked luxurious. The materials used in building this palace was, of course, at least peak earth grade. On a luxurious table that was adorned with shining gems, there were two women seated in an elegant manner as they chatted with each other. Haha, I told you right? He's deep in love with you. I hope you accept his proposal in front of the crowd, at the banquet held tomorrow. A woman who wore tight red robes said as she laughed, before turning serious. She looked incredibly curvaceous in her tight dress while her face looked amiable, making her look like a seductive angel. No way, Felicia. I know that he already has multiple wives, but that's not what I'm displeased at. He clearly is the type to abandon them once he is satisfied. Shirley said as she looked at her longtime friend with a disgusted expression. She was also her sister from another mother. Couldn't you reconsider? I can vouch for his character. Felicia said as she pleaded. Shirley held Felicia's hands and said in an apologizing tone, I'm sorry, Felicia. I already made a mistake by not listening to my father's words. I personally don't like Gart, it's just that he seems more like a snake in disguise. Gart Claymore was Felicia's cousin. He was the son of the younger sister of her mother. Her mother was originally from the Claymore Empire, but she married into the Ashton family. I see. Felicia muttered as she went silent. She then smiled and lifted up and poured a drink for Shirley and herself in a cup. Lifting up her cup, she smiled and said, Then I hope you meet your fated one tomorrow at the banquet. To your future. Shirley smiled back and lifted her cup as she smiled wryly, To my future. They both gulped the contents in a swift manner. Do you really regret your decision you made at that time? Felicia asked as she looked into her eyes with a disappointed gaze. You too? Why do all of you ask these questions? All right, you all want to know my answer, right? Go announce to the continent that I regret not making Davis Lowrit as my husband. Shirley fumed as she pouted. For these 2 days, some of her sisters and brothers came to ask her how she felt about that matter. All she could say was maybe or maybe not to hide her embarrassment. Thinking of how she missed a good opportunity to gain a good husband, she felt regret. Furthermore, their questions only served to increase her regret. I hope you get a good husband as well, Shirley replied as she sighed. Humph. Husband? You want me to get a husband? Suddenly, Felicia's tone changed as she clenched her fists. Of course, you haven't even married yet and you have the same age as mine. Shirley replied back as she laughed. She felt that Felicia was funny. Hearing her laugh, Felicia trembled. She grit her teeth before she suddenly calmed down. You are always like this, aren't you? Playful when conversing, even when you decide your future. Short-tempered while battling. You haven't changed one bit. This is my personality and it won't change one bit. Shirley laughed again as she banged the table. A red hue was slightly visible in her face. That kind of personality is going to cause you to fall one day, Felicia said in an incomparably calm manner. Shirley felt slightly hot, her face heated up and flushed red, but she still replied as she clenched her fists. Humph. I will take care of that when that day comes. Then I dare you to escape from this ruinous event that is going to befall today. Felicia roared, only hate, resentment and sadness were visible in her eyes. Shirley was shocked. Her mind suddenly connected the changes in her body to Felicia's statement, You. What did you do to me? She stood up but suddenly felt her legs go limp. Collapsing down, she held the table for support. Felicia chuckled in an ironic manner, What did I do? I merely paid back the gratitude you have shown me, you backstabber. Tears emerged out of her eyes as she looked at her with hate, partly heartbroken. What? Shirley widened her eyes. She couldn't understand what she was saying, but her eyes suddenly dilated as she caught sight of a ghastly silhouette that emerged out of nowhere. Without even wasting a single second, she brought out a crystal from her space ring. Bam! Just when she tried to crush it, her hand was slapped back, causing the crystal to fly away from her grasp. Ha ha ha, it's bad to call some elders to watch you get pleasured by me, my princess. Shirley widened her eyes as she lifted her gaze up and glared, Gart. Do you know the consequences of your actions? Chapter 132, Mastermind. The ghastly silhouette formed and materialized into a young man with noble features. He looked sharp and had a charming trait to his face. He smiled amiably and spoke, Oh, I do know. Hee, other than getting beat up a little by some of your elders and your father, you will be promised to me at the banquet tomorrow. You! Shirley shouted, but felt her body go limp and hot. It was even getting difficult for her to speak as she felt her mind go hazy. Her breathing hastened slightly, she looked at Felicia with a heated gaze before she muttered sadly, Why? Obviously, she could tell that without Felicia's help, he couldn't have made his way inside her palace. Gart chuckled lightly before he grinned, Felicia, why don't you say why you fed a peak Earth-grade aphrodisiac to her? With tears still flowing down her eyes, dripping onto the ground, Felicia shouted, How dare you? How dare you collude with our 27th brother to drug me? How could you? Shirley looked at her tear-filled eyes, she gathered up her last bit of strength to utter, I don't know what you're talking about. Nor did I collude with any brother to drug you. Hearing that, Felicia cried out in hate, Don't play dumb. I know for a fact that you did it. I have evidence. Our 27th brother raped me. Why did you do it? I thought we were close sisters. I thought we were family. Sobbing out her emotions, she collapsed as she kneeled. A few seconds passed before suddenly, a mocking laugh rang out as both of their heads turned to look at its direction. Ha ha ha, this is so hilarious. Ha ha ha. Gart kept laughing like a madman. What? Felicia felt disconcerted. You people dance on the palm of my hand so much like a puppet that I can't get enough of it. Ha ha ha. Gart kept laughing as he pointed at her. He suddenly grabbed Shirley's hands as he lifted her up, letting her hang while her knees touched the ground. You know what? The evidence I presented you is fake. You'd seriously believed the imagery crystal that was given by me? What do you mean? Felicia felt her mind go dull, she felt incredibly confused and bewildered right now. The Shirley that you saw in that imagery crystal was just a person that was disguised as Shirley. Grinning to his ear, Gart smiled as he looked at the fool who fell for his plot, that even a 10-year-old could see through. No. No. Felicia muttered as she shook her head. Even though he thought that a 10-year-old could see through this plot of his, the situation and the circumstance he gave the fake evidence to her could even make an experienced person not doubt the faked evidence. Smiling at her in derision, Gart spoke in a deranged tone, How do you feel betraying your only closest sister? Oh, she is also your closest friend, right? Please forgive my humble self for trampling on your feelings in this manner. Bastard! I will kill you! Rushing at him furiously, Felicia roared. Gart stood there smiling, not at all afraid. Just when she tried to slice him to pieces, she felt her body go numb. She collapsed beside him and looked at him with hate as she realized, What did you do to me? Gart laughed as he said, Don't worry. I just smeared your cup with a scentless paralyzing paste. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not interested in non-virgins after all. Felicia grit her teeth in incomparable hate, she looked at him in fury. If looks could kill, her looks were enough to kill him 1,000 times. By the way, I was the one who drugged you. To add on top of that, I was also the one who drugged your 27th brother. Ha ha ha, he had no idea that he was raping his own sister. Felicia's eyes widened in rage. She grit her teeth heavily while blood leaked from her mouth as if she had taken a huge blow. Shirley slightly lifted up an eye as she glared at him with fury. Scum! Gart noticed her heavy breathing but wasn't in any hurry to do anything to her. Shirley, you are different. From the moment I saw you, I had my eyes on you. Don't worry, even if you lose your innocence, I'll take care of you with all I've got. He turned his head and looked at Felicia as he grinned. Shout! Call for help! The paralyzing paste I used on you only paralyzes your body, not your voice. Felicia looked at him with incomparable hate. She glanced at Shirley and felt incredibly angry at what she had done. Why won't you shout? Haha. Of course, you know. This place has soundproofing and formations, and you're the one who led me here secretly. On top of that. Haha, grinning with a wicked smile, he continued, now, I'll have you watch as your closest friend gets violated by me. Lifting Shirley up, he threw her onto the bed. No, stop. I'll do whatever you want, let her go. Felicia cried as she spoke. In this situation, she felt like she couldn't do anything. Suddenly, his face turned pitiful as he said in a worried tone, Are you sure that you want me to let her go? I'm fine with it. Felicia's face changed as realization hit her. She started to sob and mutter as she cried her heart out, Sorry. Shirley, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Gart chuckled and removed his clothes. With an excited face, he climbed up the bed and looked at her incomparably aroused silhouette. Shirley started touching herself, caressing the sensitive spots on her body. Her breathing was heavy, her face flushed red, and combined with her pale white skin, she looked incredibly seductive and sexy. It was obvious that she had lost her consciousness to lust. You are mine. Declaring with an excited face, he was about to pounce on her when an indifferent voice sounded out, Let's stop right there, shall we? Who? After Davis exited the inn, he headed straight to the Bright Star Royal Palace, which was located somewhere near the Emperor's Royal Palace. Chapter 133, A Fool's Rix. Davis knew the location of the Emperor's Royal Palace, so he didn't have a hard time locating the Bright Star Royal Palace. Once he arrived before it, he noticed that it had strong security and formations. He pondered over it if he should sneakily go inside or openly go inside. Shirley sent me a letter secretly, that means that I have to come in secretly? Wait. What if she is plotting something? Then that means that I would have to go openly? Screw it. Even if I am framed, I still have her letter, besides, they can't kill me even if they tried. What's there to fear if I get caught? Nothing. Deciding to head in sneakily, he bypassed the formations with his amateur knowledge of formations and stealth technique. By the time he saw Shirley, she was talking to with a lovely figure, who wore tight-fitting red robes. Davis looked at her and thought, maybe I should wait for some time before she goes out. After all, Shirley wanted to speak secret. His thought trailed off as he just noticed a ghastly silhouette hiding beside the bed. Holy shit! I knew it! She was plotting something malicious. He mentally exclaimed and looked at Shirley with a disappointed expression. Let's leave. Just when he thought of leaving with a dejected feeling in his heart, he heard the unknown woman shout angrily. Looking at the transpiring spectacle, his interest was piqued. Suddenly, he saw Shirley collapse and grasp the table. His mouth turned into an O shape as he kept watching their play. Could one actually go to this length to frame someone? I knew that she was playful, but not this twisted. His reasoning was not incorrect, because he speculated assuming that she was framing him. As time passed, he started to feel that this was odd and felt this to be more and more real. Especially when that man called Gart revealed his sinister plot, he was all the more sure that what was happening was real. Still, he was a little skeptical of this tragic event. Just when Gart got on the bed, Davis's eyes turned cold as he couldn't keep watching this scene anymore. Screw it. If it was really a plot to frame me, then screw my conscience too. Davis decided and echoed out in an indifferent voice, let's stop right there, shall we? Who? Gart looked like he had been spooked by a ghost. His eyes darted left and right but he managed to find nothing. Bang! Davis kicked his face without even holding back a bit. Gart was sent flying like a kite that had its string cut. Blood sprayed like a fountain from his mouth as he flew and crashed beside a corner, rolling on the floor in an unsightly manner. Who? This time, it was Felicia who questioned. Her face was still cautious even though they had just been saved from the looks of it. She was on the ground, lying down as she stared at the black-robed figure who materialized out of thin air. Davis removed his hood and looked at her. Crown Prince Davis. Upon seeing the black-robed figure's face, Felicia shouted in incomparable joy. Prince Davis! Your Highness! I implore you to. Before she could finish her plea, Davis stood in front of her and shoved a pill right through her mouth. Gulp! Suddenly, Felicia felt like she had fallen into an abyss, thinking that she had been fed an aphrodisiac as well, but as a few seconds passed by, she felt her strength return steadily in a swift manner. She stood up and looked at him with gratitude, but also felt ashamed as she misunderstood him. At the same time, enormous guilt shrouded her heart as she glanced at Shirley who was consumed by lust. He fainted, probably has his neck broken. Then, take care. I'll leave. Davis uttered and just when he turned back to leave, his robe got grasped by a dainty hand. What? Asked Davis as he turned to look back. He wanted none of this, especially as he had left Evelyn back at the inn. Please. Felicia faced down, her arm trembled as she held his robes. He could guess what she was going to say, but he had enough of his own speculations. Please. Sleep with her. Her voice was meek enough that only a slight squeal could be heard from her. Davis stayed silent with a dumbfounded expression on his face. His speculation was spot on this time. A few seconds passed before Felicia gathered her courage and shouted, Please have intercourse with her. Silence reigned down in the place, it was as if the atmosphere froze. You're asking me to a woman who was once promised to me? Davis asked coldly. He looked at her with indifferent eyes and continued. You betray your friend, realize your mistakes, then tell someone else to sleep with her? Felicia's heart shook as he heard his words. Her eyes glazed as her face turned incomparably sad. She collapsed as she held the end of his robes. Wow! Starting to sob in a wretched manner, she broke down. Davis felt pity, but the only thing he couldn't find in his heart to forgive was a betrayal. I had no choice but to do it. Felicia cried out in anguish as she touched her heart, I was raped by my own brother, betrayed by my own sister. How would I feel? Won't I feel abandoned? Aren't I allowed to take revenge? I fed a malicious aphrodisiac to my closest sister and also my best friend. Banging her head on the ground, she went crazy as blood spurted from her forehead. She suddenly stopped and looked at the ground as she maniacally smiled, but the reality was different. My sister didn't betray me, it was I, the fool who betrayed her. Wait. Malicious aphrodisiac you say? Davis asked as he shouted, what is its name? Felicia lifted up her face in confusion before she banged her head again on the floor. Chapter 134, Sinister Yang Aphrodisiac. Looking at her miserable figure, Davis hurriedly stopped her from banging her own head. Pa! He slapped her face in an enraged manner and shouted just like how his mother would do, get yourself together if you want to help your sister. Or just wallow up in despair all you want. And just like he thought, it worked like a charm. Felicia looked at him with a bewildered face before her eyes, which were dull, glowed with clarity. What's the name of the aphrodisiac you fed her? Davis questioned as he looked at her eyes. Sinister Yang Aphrodisiac. Felicia muttered as she turned silent. Davis now finally understood why she would insist on him having intercourse with her. There were so many types of aphrodisiac in the world. As its name implied, it was really a sinister aphrodisiac that causes the victim to die if the female victim didn't have intercourse with a male. Usually, even if an aphrodisiac was used, the victim can masturbate to quell their lust. That's why he didn't hesitate to leave without doing anything to her. But this wasn't the case with certain types of aphrodisiac, and this sinister yang aphrodisiac was just one of it. What have you done? Too malicious. He sighed as he looked at her with pity. Felicia turned to look at that fainted body over in the corner. It was that snake's idea. Not only did he set me up, he even made me use that poison on her by feeding me hate. She then looked at Davis and pleaded, "Please, I understand that I have ruined her life, but if it is with you, I'm sure that she would at least live with it. After all, she regretted breaking off the marriage with you." Davis had a look of shock on his face. She regretted such a thing. I don't believe it. Don't joke with me. You are telling all this in a bid to save her. Why don't you search for someone else, someone she likes? He gave her his opinion. Even though he approved of Shirley's character, it wasn't to the point that he wanted to make her his woman. Besides, he started to love Evelyn and didn't want to do anything that would manifest as a betrayal to her. No, please help her, I don't want her to die. I'm sure that even if I went out to find another man, she would surely take her own life once she regains her sanity. Felicia kept trying her best to convince him, and from the look of it, she looked pretty desperate. You're making this difficult for me. I had already saved her once and now you're asking me to give my first time to her? To you, it might seem like I gained an advantage by sleeping with her, but to me, it is none other than an unsightly betrayal to my Evelyn. His tone then turned incomparably serious as he declared, I don't want to betray, neither do I want to be betrayed. Felicia turned silent, she could feel his stubbornness and determination. It took a while before she uttered something, then please leave silently so that you don't get caught by the guards. I'll take care of the rest. Davis nodded his head, but before he turned back, he asked her a question, what are you going to do then? Felicia smiled lightly and looked at him, I won't let her suffer. I'll kill her now and end myself as well. Her eyes turned misty and her nose turned sour, I hope she forgives me in the afterlife, or the next life. Davis nodded his head solemnly. He could see the determination and regret in her eyes. He then disappeared. Seeing that he left, Felicia turned to look at the bed after a few minutes of reminiscing about her childhood with Shirley. Shirley's clothes were torn off by her own hands, even her innerwear and the likes were slightly torn off, making her raw curves entirely visible. She clawed and caressed her own twin peaks as well as her sacred valley while moaning and groaning like an animal. Felicia walked up to her and grasped Shirley's hands as she sobbed. When Shirley felt the warmth in her hands, she unconsciously pounced on the source and grasped it as she started to lick and suck. I'm sorry. Felicia, who had one of her hands grasped, take a dagger in another hand. She closed her eyes while her emotions reached to incredibly sad heights as she stabbed at Shirley's head. Suddenly, her hands were grasped as a voice was heard, stop. Davis disappeared as he used his stealth technique. Looking at Felicia's reminiscing silhouette, he felt pity. While his conscience and morals were screaming out that he should save her, and not let it end tragically, he felt that doing so would result in him betraying Evelyn. He felt extremely conflicted on what he should do right now. Looking at Shirley's lusty actions, he felt complex emotions. What did she want to talk about? Guess I'll never find out. Suddenly, a thought emerged in his mind, making him see a light at the end of this tragic event. That's right. Why am I so stupid? I may not possess the knowledge to save her, but the Death Note should. Death Note, I'll be using one of the 2 opportunities left. Quickly tell me on how to save her without me having to have intercourse with her. He asked with a grin on his face as he could avoid a regretful ending. Honestly, he felt that if he left now, he wouldn't have any peace of mind, and that's why he used a precious opportunity to know the answer to this question. He felt like it was worth it. Ha! Isn't that easy? You didn't even need to ask me. The Death Note laughed crisply as it chuckled. What? Quick! Tell me. Davis honestly hadn't felt stupid, but now he did. He felt like he had wasted an opportunity to an answer that he had already known, but was stupid enough to not remember it. Chapter 135, Removing the Poisonous Essence. Just let another man sleep with her. Davis froze while he felt like spitting blood. His mind came to him as he shouted angrily, "FK you! You shouldn't FK me, you should FK her!" It replied in a sarcastic voice. Veins erupted on his forehead as he clenched his fists. He somehow managed to quell his anger and spoke again, "All right. No more jokes." The Death Note harumphed in derision as it spoke, "There's no way to save her." What? You must be kidding me. Davis widened his eyes. It isn't that there isn't any way to save her, you aren't just strong enough to use those methods to save her right now, at least going by your request. Davis shouted back, "Then tell me how to save her using the best possible method I possess." He then remembered that the best possible method was sleeping with her, nothing related to sleeping with her though. As if it was thoroughly incensed, it replied, "TCH, I have seen plenty of situations like these, and every male possessor who had intercourse with the drugged female party like it was nothing. In fact, they even used me to make them obedient. Why are you even hesitating? In the vast myriad of worlds, having another woman to yourself means nothing." Davis stayed silent. He couldn't argue with it, neither did he have the time to argue with it. A slight sigh echoed out in his mind, "Have you forgotten about my energy which can devour anything in the universe?" "I haven't," he replied solemnly. "Then use my power to neutralize the effects of the aphrodisiac." It replied as if it was a matter of fact. Davis's eyes went wide. "I obviously know that using your power will destroy her danshan and meridians. Are you kidding me? It's up to you to perfectly control my energy. If you can't, then just let her die." It replied in an indifferent tone. "You." Just when he thought of asking another method, he saw Felicia walk up to Shirley holding a dagger in her hand. He hurriedly asked, "Damn! Are you sure that you don't have another method?" "There is one, but for that, you don't have to sleep with her." But Davis nodded his head. He neared Felicia and just when she was about to stab with the dagger, he gripped her hands. "Stop. I just thought of a way that will let me save her without having to have intercourse with her." Felicia felt hope for a second, but after understanding his words, she looked at him angrily. "Who are you trying to fool? Every adult knows that the only method to dissolve this kind of aphrodisiac is to have intercourse. If you don't have any intention to help her, please leave, just don't humiliate her." By the time she poured out her emotions, she had started to sob again. Her determination to kill Shirley and herself massively collapsed. Davis stared at her silently before he uttered solemnly, "Do you want to save her? Or are you going to watch her getting killed by yourself?" Felicia roared at him, "I want to save her, damn it! Why don't you just have intercourse with her? I'll slave for you the rest of my life. You can do whatever you want to me. Just have intercourse with her, please. Then move aside and tie her up with whatever you got." Davis replied as he grabbed Shirley's arms and placed it behind her back, suppressing her seductive flailing body. Felicia blushed as she thought that he had a weird fetish but decided to do it since she couldn't wait to save her life. She took out a few whips and tied Shirley's hands and legs to each end of the bed. Shirley licked her lips, greedily eyeing Davis's lips as if she was in heat. She was tied up, her energy was unstable and she couldn't move consciously. Davis couldn't help but gulp at this erotic sight. He hurriedly removed all impure thoughts away from his head and placed his hand on her stomach. Fully utilizing his soul sense, he invaded her entire body, searching for the poisonous vestiges that had been spread throughout her body. And as expected, he sensed an abnormal essence in her womb. This sinister yang aphrodisiac was different than the other aphrodisiacs. It plants a sinister yang poison in the womb that slowly deteriorates her body condition, internally killing the female victim. The only way to cure that poison is to receive a male's essence. Similarly, there was an aphrodisiac known as sinister yin aphrodisiac, which victimizes men. The only way to cure it is for them to have their genitals covered by a female's essence. He couldn't do anything about her lust. If he had wanted to cure her lust, then pleasuring her was the only way. If he used the Death Note's energy to cure her lust, then he can say goodbye to her cultivation and senses, as it can possibly devour every nerve that stimulates her body. His control wasn't so good that it can only remove the aphrodisiac which had been stimulating her nerves, plus it might harm her cultivation, eventually leading to death. A tiny bit of dark energy diffused from his palm, entering her stomach in an incomparably slow manner. Using his soul, he guided the dark energy through her stomach, finally reaching her womb. Felicia was confused. She looked at Davis, who had his palm over Shirley's stomach for almost 5 minutes. The scene she expected didn't arrive, but it seemed like that he was treating her with some kind of method. But from her point of view, it didn't help at all, since Shirley still licked her own lips while breathing heavily, lusting for him. Suddenly, Shirley started to struggle as she lustily flailed left and right. Davis got interrupted, but he managed to control the dark energy from going berserk. "You! Hurry up and kiss her if you want to save her!" he shouted as he felt his last strain of concentration going away. Felicia went wide-eyed, not because she heard his words. It was because just when she instantly decided to do what he asked, she noticed Gart waking up from the corner of her eyes. "Bastard, I'll kill you!" Roaring with hatred, Felicia dashed forward and kicked Gart's face, once again causing him to break his neck totally. Chapter 136, I didn't call you. Davis's eyes went bloodshot as he felt his concentration go away. In a fit of desperation, he kissed Shirley's lips to make her not struggle anymore. With his last remaining amount of concentration, he used the dark energy to devour the sinister yang poison from her womb. He went limp from exhaustion, causing his head to fall, making his face get plastered with wet kisses and licks. "Gee! Get off me!" a voice tinged with seduction erupted beside Davis's ears. Though she said that, she still licked his lips greedily. With the kiss and the destruction of the yang poison, a strain of her conscience returned to Shirley. Davis felt his energy come back to him as he promptly stood up. Shirley was still breathing heavily, but it looked like she had some clarity returned to her. That said, it didn't change the fact that she was still lusty and horny in her current state. "Shirley!" Felicia joyfully ran up to her, but once she remembered what she had done, her expression turned sad. Davis wiped the wet stains out of his face. He then removed her constraints and moved to a certain direction to pick up 2 imagery crystals he set up when talking to the Death Note. He stored one while he threw the other one to Shirley. "Here, this will help you understand what had just happened here," Davis said as he sighed. Finally, he was able to save her, but his expression turned disappointed once he thought about how he kissed her to make her stop struggling. It was all that woman's fault. Muttering as he walked away, he looked at Felicia with dissatisfaction. "Wait! Why are you here?" Shirley's breasts heaved up and down as she asked a question with one of her eyes closed. "Why? Didn't you call me over to come here?" Davis said as he took out the letter. Looking at the letter, Shirley shook her head. "I didn't send any letter. Nor did I tell you to come to visit my palace." "What?" His eyes widened in shock. "I'm telling the truth." Davis's eyes slowly widened. He suddenly thought of how he left Evelyn alone in the inn. Without asking a single question, Davis fully activated his cultivation base. Just when he was about to break through the walls, a faint voice sounded out, "Wait." Davis stopped as he grit his teeth and looked at her in rage. "I don't have the time to talk with you. Hurry up and say whatever you want. Leave through the secret entrance," Shirley said as she pointed at a direction. Davis looked at the place she pointed out to see a hidden switch. He dashed in that direction and activated it. Without saying anything, he hurriedly left through the secret entrance which opened. Shirley looked at his rushing silhouette with a complicated gaze. Normally, if a woman who lives in a royal palace revealed the secret entrance to a man, then that means that the woman has acknowledged that man as her man. But Davis, who didn't know the ways of this world, couldn't understand that underlying meaning. If he compared it to a woman who leaves her back door open to her man, he might understand it, but the situation he was placed in left him no leeway to even think about that matter. "Who are you, people?" Evelyn opened the door and asked with her eyes narrowed. In front of her were 3 women who were clad in black robes. They removed their hoods as they flashed their beautiful smiles. Evelyn widened her eyes in surprise. "You all." She then clasped her hands, "Miss Sasha, Miss Venice, and Miss Hannah. To what do I owe you the pleasure?" All 3 of them also returned the greeting and went inside the room as if they owned it. Evelyn looked at them suspiciously, but didn't stop them, nor did she have the power to stop them. "Such an inn! How do you people even stay in these kinds of places?" Hannah questioned as she removed her black robes. Her luxurious green silk robes were revealed, making her look gorgeous. The other 2 also removed their black robes and sat on the bed as if they returned to their home to take rest. Venice was clad in pink silk robes while Sasha was clad in purple silk robes tinged with black. Evelyn looked at the 3 of them and frowned. Miss Hannah belonged to the Ross family, while Miss Venice and Miss Sasha belonged to the Claymore family. She met them while roaming around with Davis in this royal capital. "Say something, will you?" Venice uttered in displeasure. Her eyes were narrowed while she had a faint smile on her face. "How will she? Her status is so low that she won't even dare to say anything in front us." Sasha giggled as mockery could be seen in her eyes. "What do you people want?" Evelyn looked at them with an indifferent gaze and questioned. She stopped giving them a respectful attitude. Hannah looked at her with a puzzled face. We do not want anything." Suddenly, her face changed as she looked at Evelyn with a worried expression. Her eyes were filled with pity as she questioned, "It's just that. Do you know where your so-called fiancé went?" Evelyn widened her eyes, but her expression turned normal a moment later as she replied, "What do you mean?" Hannah looked at the other 2 and shook her head. "Poor lady. Evelyn, I feel so sorry for you." Venice replied as she looked at her with a consoling gaze. Sasha quipped in, "We couldn't help but stay still after watching the injustice you suffered by his actions, even though you are of lower birth." Evelyn had her face changed to an anxious one. She looked deathly pale after hearing their words. "What did he do?" Hannah smiled faintly when she heard the words she wanted to hear. Her expression changed into one of anger. "How dare does he cheat when he got a lady as lovely as you? He is unfaithful. This is a betrayal." Chapter 137, You Deserve to Die. Venice lifted up her brows. "Yet, your prince left the inn to visit Princess Shirley for some reason." Sasha shouted back at Venice, "What do you mean for some reason? They are definitely doing it right now. How does he dare?" Hannah replied with a disgusted face, "I can't believe he left his woman to make out with another woman. It can't be helped. After all, men are horny creatures, you can't even underestimate a kid, especially a growing child." Venice sighed as she shook her head. "Besides, when the other party is a princess of an empire, does a fiancé of low status still hold a candle?" With her hands spread wide, Sasha asked as she grinned slightly for a moment. As if ignoring her statement, Hannah said, "Evelyn, when the prince comes back, you should address your grievances to him and make him understand that he should only love you." Venice smiled as she looked back at Evelyn. "Right. If you are able to do this, then you can have the prince dancing in the palm of your hands. She means that you can make him love only you," Hannah added with an excited expression on her face. Suddenly, Evelyn's expression turned normal, as if her consciousness were reset by someone. A moment later, she smiled at them with a mocking gaze and threw a letter at Hannah's face in a split second. You! Hannah totally didn't expect her to throw something. The letter hit her face, making it sound like a slap. Read it. Evelyn said as she sneered, but inside she was absolutely disgusted. Hannah looked at her with rage, then opened the letter to read. Evenin', I'm sorry. I'm going to the Bright Star Royal Palace as I got a letter from Princess Shirley, stating that she needs to talk to me about an important matter. Rest assured, I'm not sure if the one who sent this letter is Princess Shirley in the first place. I'm just going to make sure. Hannah's eyes widened as she read the letter while realization hit her hard, she was playing with us the whole time. Originally, their goading actions should have ended right at this point, giving them some time to leave, but Davis's unexpected action of leaving a letter to Evelyn ruined their plot. Honestly, I didn't believe that there are women like you, sly and devious. Humph, if you had wanted my fiancé, you should have just walked in front of him and confessed openly. Instead of doing that, you plotted and tried to ruin our relationship by making me doubt him? You're all are worse than scum. Evelyn coldly berated as she looked down on them. Evelyn remembered how she gained approval from Davis's mother, and how his mother told her to be a fitting bride for him. So Evelyn decided not to fear anyone in this world and took a step forward to achieve that goal. As expected, the three of them stood up while displaying incensed and ugly expressions on their faces. Gritting her teeth in shame, Hannah coldly threatened, "Girl, you should watch your mouth." Being exposed and humiliated right now, she felt shame from the bottom of her heart. Humph! If my fiancé didn't leave me a letter, I would have truly believed your words. Trash! Evelyn replied ruthlessly, not opting to give them any face. Normally, she doesn't even berate her own servants, but now, her anger had reached above her threshold, making her curse these people. Suddenly, Hannah laughed, "Ha ha ha, it doesn't matter if he left you a letter or not. It doesn't change the fact that he left you for that princess. After all, you are someone of lower status no matter how one might think." Evelyn trembled a little before she smiled coldly, "What you say might be true, but I'm still better than scum like you three." "Hannah, I told you we should have just went with that plan," Vanice coldly said with a frosty expression on her face. "No, that plan is too merciful for this wench. We should have just brought those 3 horny men we killed before right here," Sasha replied ruthlessly. Hannah widened her eyes, "Are you blind? Don't take it too far." "So what if I take it too far? I wonder if your precious fiancé will still love you if you slept with another person?" Sasha smilingly asked Evelyn, her expression was full of mockery. "Pa!" A resounding slap echoed inside the room, shocking the three of them into utter disbelief. "You deserve to die," Evelyn declared coldly while looking at Sasha with a murderous gaze. Her hands trembled while she pointed at Sasha. This kind of murderous feeling, it was something she had never felt before, but the words Sasha uttered made her want to kill so badly. "Leave." She pointed at the door and said in a commanding tone. Hannah felt the situation go overboard. Giving up, she started walking away with an ugly face. She didn't think that she would have to face such humiliation from a woman with a lower status. Vanice looked at her leaving silhouette and followed her with a defeated face as well. They both looked at each other and knew that they couldn't offend Evelyn too much. If they did, they knew that they would undoubtedly die. So, they could only swallow this humiliation in defeat. Sasha had an angry expression on her face. She trembled as she touched her left cheek, where a red palm imprint could be seen. Gritting her teeth in utter humiliation, she passed by Evelyn, looking down on the floor. Suddenly, she lifted up her hand and brandished it in the direction of Evelyn. Whiz! An ear-piercing sound echoed throughout the room when suddenly, it stopped with a clap sound. Evelyn emitted a grey-colored glow from her body, while her hand held the sharp end of a whip, which Sasha used to attack just now. A drop of blood dripped on the ground, making the atmosphere incredibly tense. Humph! Sasha harumphed coldly and suddenly shook her hand, causing the whip to flail wildly.